In the stillness of the night, within the shadowed depths of a palace wing that few eyes ever see, a quiet but profound decision was made, one that would unknowingly fracture the very future of the British monarchy. King Charles, with a calm and measured hand, signed something that no one had ever expected, a document that would quietly erase a name from the monarchy's most vital contingency plan. This was not a mere rumor circulating among palace aides or a whisper that could be brushed aside. This was a monumental act, one that would rewrite the very destiny of the monarchy. Soon, Queen Camilla, unaware of the forces at play, would discover that she had been silently removed from Prince George's potential future. Her role, once seen as a cornerstone of continuity in a time of crisis, had been quietly reassigned. Before we delve deeper into the significance of this decision and its long-reaching consequences for the royal family, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single update on this unfolding drama. The ripples from this shift will continue to echo through the palace halls for years to come. This revision was not accompanied by any grand public announcement, nor by the usual pomp and circumstance of royal tradition. There were no celebratory gatherings, no formal statements issued from the royal palace. Instead, it arrived like a shadow quietly in the hidden corners of royal bureaucracy. An emergency review of regency protocols had been summoned, a process so secretive and urgent that even the most seasoned palace aides were left unsettled by the gravity of its sudden onset. Regency documents, for those unfamiliar, are not ordinary papers filed away in dusty archives. They are the lifeblood of the monarchy, the constitutional safeguard that kicks into motion only in the most extreme of circumstances. These documents determine who holds the power if the heir to the throne is too young or otherwise unable to rule. They are designed to function in moments of unimaginable crisis, tragic and destabilizing events that the monarchy itself hopes never to face. They are not merely legal texts, they are the foundation of royal survival in the face of disaster. For years, Queen Camilla's name had been carefully etched into these sacred documents, positioned as a potential guiding force should Prince George's moment of need ever come to pass. It was a position filled with both symbolic and practical weight. Her inclusion in the plan had stood as a reassuring gesture, a symbol of unity and stability, suggesting that should the unimaginable occur, the crown would rest not only on the bloodline but in trusted hands, hers alongside the rightful heir. Her presence in these documents was a reflection of trust. It was a nod to her loyalty, her partnership with Charles, and the belief that should fate intervene, she would step forward to preserve the monarchy's integrity. But then something shifted. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, a flicker of something off balance. Small disagreements began to bubble up from beneath the polished surface. There were murmurs of discontent about public roles, simmering tensions regarding Prince George's preparation for the future, and whispered concerns about influence and legacy. At first, these signs seemed so minor that they could be easily ignored. But in the rarefied world of royal life, these small fractures speak louder than the loudest confrontations. Nothing overt, nothing that could be seen as explosive or scandalous, just small quiet shifts in the fabric of palace life. And it's in these quiet moments, in the subtleties of delayed consultations, in the sudden reshuffling of meetings that have no clear explanation, where the true fractures begin to appear. In a family whose every move is scrutinized, every gesture noted, every decision analyzed for its significance, even the smallest deviation can be telling. In a world so carefully curated and controlled, the faintest ripple becomes a wave. Behind the golden gates and high stone walls of the palace, the air began to change. The whispers of discontent grew louder. The foundation of trust, once solid and unshakable, was now beginning to crack, and yet to the outside world it remained undetected. The palace continued its operations as usual, its official business continuing to appear as if nothing had changed. But those closest to the monarchs knew the subtle differences. They saw the delayed responses, the strained glances exchanged in meetings, the quiet unease that permeated the air. Prince George, still a child in many ways, is not simply a young member of the royal family. He is in many ways the monarchy's horizon, the figure on whom its future depends. He represents not just the continuity of the royal line, but the very survival of the institution itself. His upbringing, his protection, and his eventual ascension to the throne carry immense emotional and political weight. Ver stands by his side, guiding him through crises, shaping his education, and preparing him for the mantle of kingship, will have a hand in shaping the future of the monarchy. And yet, as King Charles and his advisors quietly debated the changes to the regency structure, it became clear that the future of George's reign and the path leading him there was already being rewritten. This wasn't just a matter of protecting a child in times of crisis. This was about ensuring that when the time came, no one would be able to challenge the line of succession, the loyalty, or the unity of the royal family. For years, Queen Camilla had been Charles's rock, standing beside him through every trial, scandal, and triumph. She had earned her place beside him not only in the public eye but in the workings of the monarchy itself. But now, as the months went on, subtle differences began to grow between them. Conversations about Prince George's upbringing grew sharper. Camilla, pragmatic and adaptable, favored openness, believing that confidence would come through visibility. She wanted George to be seen, to learn early how to navigate the public gaze. Charles, on the other hand, had lived a life under constant scrutiny. He understood the cost of public life, the toll it took on a person, and he worried about placing too much responsibility on George too soon. These disagreements were not earth-shattering. They were quiet, private moments of tension, discussions that lacked the drama of a public argument but were no less important for their subtlety. They were the cracks in the foundation, small but undeniable. As the royal family shifted from one generation to the next, the implications of these quiet shifts became clearer. When the decision was made to revise the regency document, it wasn't a public clash. There were no explosive debates, no grand confrontations. It wasn't even framed as an overt rejection of Camilla, but in the quiet act of removing her name from Prince George's potential regency, Charles was, in essence, sending a clear message. The monarchy's future required a singular, unambiguous line of trust, a line that now no longer included Camilla in the most delicate of circumstances. The implications of this were not lost on those who understood the weight of royal protocol. To be written out of the regency document was not merely an administrative act. It was a repositioning of loyalty, a subtle but clear redefinition of where trust now resided. Camilla's role as queen consort remained, but her proximity to the throne's most delicate decision-making was now officially circumscribed. The shift in trust was quiet but undeniable. And so, as the decision settled in, those closest to Camilla could see the emotional weight of it, felt not in the grand halls of Westminster or the corridors of the palace, but in the quiet moments of reflection behind closed doors. This wasn't just a policy shift, this was personal. To be excluded from Prince George's future in this way was not just a professional disappointment for Camilla, it was a profound emotional blow, a slow, silent recalibration of everything she had worked for. Her loyalty, which had once seemed to guarantee her place at the heart of the monarchy's future, was now questioned. And while the world may never know the full depth of the decision's personal impact, it would not be lost on those who saw the quiet cracks within the royal family begin to widen. In the end, these fractures didn't announce themselves with a public outcry. They unfolded slowly in whispers, in decisions made in the dark of night. And while the world continued to watch with bated breath, the monarchy quietly adjusted to its new future, a future that once again may no longer include Camilla in the role she once believed she held. The implications of this decision, both personal and constitutional, will echo through the monarchy for years to come, reshaping relationships, perceptions, and the very future of the British crown. Prince George is not simply a child in this story. He represents the very future of the monarchy, the embodiment of an entirely new era. His guardianship is burdened with both emotional and political weight far beyond his years. Whoever takes the mantle of guiding him through a crisis will, in essence, have the power to shape the monarchy's future. This weighty truth has always loomed over the royal family, casting a long shadow, influencing every choice made behind the palace doors and within the hidden walls of power. So when King Charles demanded revisions to the regency structure, the reactions from senior advisors were nothing short of stunned silence. Some assumed this was nothing more than a procedural adjustment, a minor bureaucratic refinement that was part of royal duty. But others sensed something far deeper unfolding beneath the official language, something personal. The decision to remove Camilla's name from the list of potential regents wasn't framed as punishment, it was instead presented as protection. But protection from what? And more intriguingly, from whom? These questions hovered unanswered, buried beneath the layers of diplomatic language and hidden intentions. For Camilla, the effects of the change were not immediately apparent. There was no public scandal, no stripping of her titles, no overt sign of rebuke, yet the symbolism was unavoidable. To be written out of George's potential regency was not just an administrative adjustment, it was a quiet repositioning within the royal hierarchy, a subtle yet significant shift in the trust placed in her. It was not merely a matter of governance or procedure. It was deeply emotional, strategic, and personal, because in the monarchy, documents do not merely structure power, they lay bare loyalties and alliances, revealing the true lines of trust and influence. When a king alters a safeguard tied to his grandson's future, it is far more than just an institutional move. It is, in fact, a declaration, one that speaks volumes about how the monarchy will survive, adapt, and evolve, and most crucially, who will be at the helm when the crown must pass to the next generation. The question, then, is not just why this document was altered, but what force compelled King Charles to act with such secrecy. To fully understand the reasoning behind this change, we must look beyond the ink on paper and delve deeper into the private fractures that have been quietly forming inside the palace walls. For decades, Queen Camilla had stood steadfastly beside Charles, Through scandal, exile, and eventual triumph, she had waited, endured, and ultimately risen to her position by his side. It was not an easy journey. Her place was not simply handed to her. She had to fight for it, prove herself in the eyes of the British public and the royal family alike. But after everything, why, after all they had been through together, would the king now choose to remove her from such a pivotal constitutional role? Insiders whisper that this decision wasn't rooted in politics, nor was it a calculated maneuver for the sake of power. It was, at its core, about trust. And once trust within the monarchy begins to crack, it doesn't fracture in dramatic public ways. It shatters quietly in the silences between decisions, in the spaces where words are left unspoken but the weight of intentions is clearly understood. Theirs has never been a simple story. It was forged in the fires of controversy, tested by public fury, and sustained through the years when the future of the monarchy itself seemed uncertain. Camilla did not inherit affection or admiration from the public. She earned it, and she earned it slowly, painfully. She did not simply stand as Charles's wife, she became his partner in the truest sense, standing beside him in the most difficult of times, helping to ensure the monarchy's survival through their combined endurance. Together, they weathered storms that would have broken most couples, building a bond that for a time seemed unshakable. But now, this decision feels less like an institutional policy adjustment and more like a rupture, a fracture of a relationship that had once seemed so solid. In recent months, subtle tensions had begun to stir just beneath the polished surface of their relationship. The conversations about Prince George's public presence were becoming sharper, more pointed. How much visibility was too much for such a young heir? How soon should he be expected to shoulder the responsibility of his position? Camilla, ever the pragmatist, believed that confidence came from familiarity with the public gaze, that a future king should learn early how to handle the pressure of being seen. Charles, on the other hand, understood the suffocating weight of relentless scrutiny. He had borne that burden since he was a child, and he knew all too well the price it exacted on the soul. His experience had made him wary of subjecting his young grandson to the same kind of pressure too early. While both Camilla and Charles believed they were working in George's best interest, their differing views on how to best prepare him for the throne had begun to put them at odds. These disagreements, though minor on the surface, were indicative of a deeper shift in their partnership. The issues were not explosive or scandalous, but in the world of the royals, even the smallest shift in strategy can carry enormous weight. And now, those subtle shifts had built up to the point where the king made a decisive move, one that would forever alter the trajectory of the monarchy and the relationships that had once seemed so firm. The decision to remove Camilla from George's potential regency wasn't just about George or the monarchy. It was about trust, how it is given, how it is shared, and how it is ultimately withdrawn. And this shift in trust, this quiet removal of Camilla from the regency equation, was a decision that would reverberate throughout the monarchy foe. Our generations to come, it wasn't just a matter of policy. It was the first crack in a foundation that had, until now, seemed unbreakable. As the palace adjusts to this new reality, the true weight of the decision is still settling. And in the quiet chambers of the royal family, beneath the perfectly orchestrated smiles and public appearances, the question remains: what happens when trust is broken, when the people closest to you are suddenly not what they once seemed? The answer to that question will likely shape the monarchy's future in ways that even the royal family itself cannot yet fully comprehend. Their differing views, while small in the grand scheme of the monarchy, held enormous consequences for shaping the future king. It wasn't just about methods or approaches, it was about vision. And lurking beneath this seemingly inconsequential divide were also murmurs of modernization. Camilla, pragmatic and adaptable, embraced gradual reform, believing that change should come with patience and evolution. On the other hand, Charles, with his eyes increasingly fixed on legacy, sought to preserve what had been carefully built over centuries. The old ways to him held immense value, and any change had to be measured, deliberate. Their paths, once parallel, were now diverging. The subtle cracks in their shared vision were becoming undeniable, and it was becoming clear that the delicate balance they had once maintained was shifting. Then the tipping point came, what insiders described as a critical private disagreement, the details of which remained guarded within the palace walls, served as the catalyst. This moment wasn't marked by a public confrontation, nor was it the clash of titanic wills. It wasn't a dramatic showdown, but rather a moment of quiet realization, one that Charles could no longer ignore. It wasn't just about reassessing strategy anymore. It was about reassessing alignment, about recalibrating the very foundations upon which the monarchy stood. The regency role is not merely ceremonial, it is the ultimate expression of trust. It's a role that signifies unshakable faith, one that carries the heavy burden of ensuring the continuity of the monarchy during its most vulnerable moments. To remove Camilla from that framework wasn't simply a shift in political power. It was a profound redefinition of loyalty, a statement that when it comes to George's future, strategic certainty must outweigh emotional loyalty. The monarchy's survival, in Charles's eyes, depended on this clarity. The weight of Camilla's removal from the regency cannot be overstated. Her journey from outsider to queen consort was built on perseverance, partnership, and an unwavering commitment to the crown. Her exclusion from George's potential regency didn't strip her of her title, but it redefined her place within the royal hierarchy, her proximity to the throne in its most delicate contingency now forever altered. It whispered a painful truth: influence has its limits, and those limits may be closer than she had ever anticipated. The very trust that had been built over decades was now in question, with the stakes higher than ever before. Yet the most unsettling question still looms in the air. Did Charles reach this decision alone, or was he subtly influenced by others, voices quietly shaping his actions, determined to ensure that George's path would be unencumbered by any shadow of divided authority? The answer remains elusive, and the timing of the revision suggests that more than mere coincidence was at play. As tensions simmered between the two at the very heart of the crown, another force quietly began asserting its influence over the future king's protection: Prince William. William has always been cautious with his son's future, but when rumors surfaced that Camilla might one day hold regency over George, something inside him shifted. This wasn't about rivalry, it was about legacy. William wasn't acting out of jealousy or competition. He was acting out of a sense of duty to ensure that the monarchy would endure, its future protected. His growing influence within the family was becoming undeniable. His priority was not personal gain, but the monarchy's survival, free from the controversies and divisions of the past. His influence had become impossible to ignore, and with this moment it became abundantly clear: the future of the monarchy was no longer solely in Charles's hands. The decision to remove Camilla from the regency framework wasn't just about family dynamics or past disagreements. It was about signaling a dramatic shift in how the monarchy would be led in the years to come. It was not a rejection of the past. No, that wasn't it. It was a declaration about the future, a statement that the monarchy's direction would be guided by clarity, unity, and cohesion. Charles's decision to revise the regency wasn't dramatic. There were no public statements, no grand speeches. It was a quiet recalibration, one that spoke volumes without saying a word. By making this adjustment, Charles was not just securing his son's future, he was securing the monarchy's survival. The message was clear: the monarchy's continuity rested on one unambiguous line of authority, and that line, it seemed, was no longer Camilla's to hold. Yet, as with all decisions of this magnitude, there was a personal cost. The crown may have been steadier today, but the emotional weight of this decision would be felt in private moments, in the quiet corridors of the palace, where thoughts turned inward and reflections took hold. As time passes, we will see how the monarchy recalibrates itself, adjusting around George's eventual reign. And as it does, the question must be asked: will this decision and its personal cost be remembered as a wise move, a necessary step to secure the monarchy's future, or will it be seen as a quiet fracture at the heart of the crown? History, as always, will decide, but what is clear in this moment is that the monarchy is not static. It is always recalibrating, always preparing for what's ahead. This revision, though subtle, marks a pivotal shift in its trajectory, one that will be felt for generations to come as the crown prepares itself for its next chapter. And perhaps most importantly, as we look to the future, we must remember that the monarchy, despite its royal trappings and centuries of tradition, is still a living institution, one that must evolve, adapt, and ultimately change in order to survive.